Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zanokolo Koyan, the Chief Financial Officer for NFVF. But currently, for this week, I'm acting on behalf of my boss, Ms. Makosa Zanakanyele, who is not around. The reason why we are engaging with you as the industry players, we want to take through and engage our stakeholders on the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, which is the program of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, which we as an NFF are implementing on behalf of the department. And the program itself is to assist our industry in terms of creating jobs and also retaining jobs. The target for the organization is to make sure that we create 5,000 new jobs, and also we are able to assist the industry to retain 3,000 jobs. So what we want to do is to engage and clarify the program itself, so that people can have an understanding when they make the application on the call that we have advertised, that is closing on the 30th of this month, November, which was advertised on the 30th of October. So the issue we're going to be dealing with is addressing the program itself, and also taking questions and clarify any things that people are interested in. And the person who's going to be assisting us in making the presentation is my colleague, with the head of operations, Ms. Nomazulumta. Can you greet the people, please?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks. All right, thank you so much. Also working with me to engage with you as the stakeholders of NFF is Ms. Yolanda Ngogotwane. She is our acting HOD for the industry development, but she is working in another site, not here in the office. Can you, Yolanda, assist, greet people and engage? please show Yolanda. Yolanda, please unmute yourself. Can you assist in unmuting? Thank you. All right, Yolanda. We can't hear you.
She's unmuted. She can speak. No, she's not speaking.
Unmute. All right, thanks. Yolanda. Can you assist? All right. I think what I want also to engage and make you clear is that as much as we will be taking questions at the end of the presentation, we have frequently asked questions that we as NFVF have drafted, which we have received input from our industry players. So we have those questions that are on the NFVF website. So we will be allowing you to engage with us with the social medium that we are using. So you can ask your questions and then we will address those questions at the end of the presentation. But please also check our website so that you can see if ever maybe something you want to engage or question is not already included in our frequently asked questions. I will now, without wasting time, hand over to my colleague, Ms. Nomazurumta, so that she can start with the presentation. Over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Zanokod. I think you've already explained that the PSP is a program of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, acting as an implementing agent of the presidency and with the funds distributed from National Treasury. So you also went into the purpose of and the objectives of the program, which is to create new employment opportunities and retain some. So I'm just going to go straight into the details. The National Treasury and DSEC, ladies and gentlemen, made available a total of 140 million rand to be dispersed through the NFVF, targeting specifically practitioners and individuals and businesses in the audiovisual sector. And it's administered through a criteria that was developed in conjunction with and approved by DSEC. A total of 5% of the PSP will be used for administrative purposes, meaning that the net amount available then will be 133 million rand. So objective one, we've already mentioned, that is to create new employment opportunities. And the target here for the government is to reach 5,000 new employment opportunities. And they've ring-fenced 100 million rand, which will address the applications or the request for proposals rather covered at streams 1 to 3. And objective 2 is to retain employment opportunities. And the target is to retain 3,000 of those, and a 40 million rand allocation, which targets only stream 4, has been made available. Now, who is eligible to apply for funding? So it's individuals and companies who can bring projects that can be implemented within a 3-month period. The NFVF and the NAC, as the two implementing agencies of the DSEC in the respective sectors that they serve, have been given until the 31st of March 2021 to complete the project. So ideally then projects that can demonstrate an ability to employ at least 10 or more people for at least a 3-month period then would be prioritized and or are encouraged rather, but obviously those who can demonstrate a higher threshold or a higher employment reach than the minimum 10 will be viewed favorably. And it's important that projects should take into consideration the applicable COVID-19 regulations and provide detailed plans to that effect. We also encourage proposals from or proposals that prioritize youth, women, people with disabilities, and those previously advantaged. And we want the projects or proposals rather, to be as widespread as possible and reach even and especially the underserviced areas in the country. Projects as well should address scarce skills development and training opportunities. Now, key dates, we all know that the call opened on 30 October 2020. It has a closing date of 30 November 2020. Initially, what was published was that it would be, closing time would be 1700. We have since extended this to 23:59, which is midday of 30 November. But obviously, we encourage people to get their applications in to avoid any inconveniences due to unforeseen technical challenges that may occur. And we expect then to, from 1 December, to commence with the adjudication process, which means that due to the volume of applications we're seeing registered now, successful applicants will be notified by 15 January 2021. And by the time we close January 2021, sorry, that's a typo, it should have been 2021, payments should have been made to the successful applicants. It's important to note that we will have a 5-day window period where people who are not successful can submit their appeals, and the closing date of those appeals will be 20 January 2021. And we expect to then have concluded the process of appeals by 31 January 2021. So that is the summary of the streams, and I'm just going to go into the details of each. Stream 1 is what we call a production call, and basically this targets proposals in fiction, in non-fiction projects. These can include live action, documentary, animation, TV concepts, and any other viable audiovisual proposals. What's important to note is that a proposal must have or show the ability to create 10 or more jobs in a specified period, which is 3 months. We will accept proposals that have gap funding as well, and also proposals on those that are listed below there, which is micro budget film, short film, web series, and made for TV. What's important to note is that this call specifically excludes commissioned work. So that will not necessarily, those proposals of commissioned work will not necessarily be qualify for funding in the PSP. And the application requirements that are compulsory for the production call stream, it's a proposal synopsis, it's a brief summary of the project, it's a treatment plan, a fully developed script, CVs and career profiles of the key creative team, a production schedule, marketing and distribution strategy, production company or an individual's experience. If you're applying as an individual, a detailed budget and a recoupment plan, as well as cash flow, a full credit list, and a total number of jobs to be created. Stream 2 is skills development. And here we're looking for, or inviting rather proposals from people who can demonstrate an ability to create employment opportunities while at the same time addressing scarce skills gaps. And these could be internships, mentorships, training programs, and the facilitation fees. It could be virtual or physical classes, training of safety officers on sets, because that's a really big and growing concern in the industry. The requirements here, you would need as an applicant to show us the training program with its outlined objectives, the timelines, the selection criteria, CVs of facilitators, and your budget. And then stream 3 is the industry support, and basically relates to the distribution strategy proposals that will also have an employment creation element, focusing on marketing, distribution, impact campaigns, and festivals, and any other distribution strategy proposals that applicants may come up with. And its compliance requirements include CVs of key management or the individual applying, a project plan, an audience development strategy, and your audience development strategy could include activation areas if it's applicable, proposed screening schedule and structure if that is applicable. But it's important to note that your proposal has to have a unique selling point and demonstrate sustainability and contribution to the overall recovery and growth of the sector. And the fourth stream specifically then targets or reserves for 40 million rand and targets business recovery programs. And this is for businesses that were negatively affected by COVID-19. And the intention here is to retain employment opportunities that are at a loss or a risk of permanent loss or that have been lost. And here the compliance requirements include a recovery plan for the company, a proposed project plan or list of projects or active projects, historical payroll data for a 12-month period, so we can indeed test that or have evidence that you did employ people for a defined period. It doesn't have to be a full 12-month period because we understand that employment is seasonal in our sector, but at least you need to demonstrate for us over a period of 12 months ended 31 March 2020. And we would like to also see payroll data year to date, which would mean 1 April to 30 September 2020. And I know that year to date may refer to October even or to even November, but here we've decided to deliberately set it at 30 November. And we would need obviously an income statement that would reflect operating expenses because we're aware that some companies may not necessarily require in this stream a wage subsidy, but would require support in the form of financing their overheads. So if that is the requirement for your specific needs, then we would require an income statement that would reflect your operating expenses, but then you would have to link it back to how you're going to save jobs or retain or recoup the jobs that would have been lost. We'll obviously need a list of jobs to be retained. And in terms of the questions that we've seen on the people who are trying to apply on praxis, one common thing that keeps coming up is if there are any caps amount that would be similar to what the NFVF funding structure is currently. And the answer to that question is that there are no pre-existing caps that are provided. Obviously, there is a model that our CFO will explain, but each proposal will be evaluated by a panel based on the number of jobs proposed, based on the cost of expertise identified. And those two will be the variables to which will determine the cap or the amount that is allocated per application. It's important to know the scale of the project, the number of jobs created, and demonstration of how jobs will be retained and those that are at high risk of being retained. Here, the key compulsory documentation for submission is the CVs of the key personnel for the companies that submit or individuals, original tax certificate for both companies and for, tax status rather, not tax certificate. Original tax status and individual tax status for both companies and the individuals, company registration documents for those who will be applying as companies, certified copies of ID documents, and a COVID-19 safety plan that's aligned with the regulations of the Department of Health and the Department of Employment and Labor. These slides then are just a depiction of where you're going to find an application form. You basically go to our website and you follow the tabs as demonstrated in the presentation, and that's where it will take you to the Praxis portal where you can put in your application or register rather your application. If you need to contact the NFVF for any inquiries you might have, contact details registered there on that slide. There's Tandegile and Mandi who are ready to handle your queries. It's important to note that there'll be no drop-offs that will be allowed. You can also email us at nfvf.co or applications@nfvf.co.za or call us on our line. And we really do invite and potential applicants to call us and to contact us so we can give any advice prior to the closing date. We are on, and those are just our social media handles where you can access us if you want to address any burning inquiry. Thank you.
Thanks, Nomazulu. I think we will engage in terms of, there are some few questions that have been asked from us. There's a question from Matume about where to access the documents. The documents are in our website, national www.nfvf.co.za. That is where you will find those documents that you will need in terms of this presidential stimulus. Of course, there's a comment that has been made by my colleague in relation to the question of the caps. I think the approach in terms of our industry is that we cannot apply a blanket approach just because, for example, we are given 100 million and then we take 100 million divided by 5,000, because expertise of people differ. So that means when expertise differ, we need to advise the panel in terms of ensuring that they apply a scaled down approach in terms of ensuring there is no blanket approach, because experiences of people differ. You cannot pay an intern the same amount that you can pay someone who's got more than 5 years or 4 years experience. So the approach, of course, we've got a range that the panel can use, but it's not going to cover 100% of whatever the person would have earned, as an example. But our range is going to be guided by the amount that the panel will use. I would make an example of saying maybe between 4,000 up to 15,000, because we're expecting to create 8,000 jobs in total. And therefore, we need to be equitable when we divide the slice of cake, so that we make sure we reach many people. And of course, our intention and our interest is to make sure, at least if we can reach people who are running their companies, or else even people who are freelancers or people who are individuals who run a sole proprietor company. And of course, big companies, they play a big role because they appoint more people. So of course, we want those companies because we know they appoint the same target market we have in our mind. And of course, as presented, we are more interested in the people who are coming from the previously disadvantaged areas, which is the township and the rural and the far-flung areas, Northwest, Northern Cape, Limpopo, all those provinces that are outside from Gauteng and Cape Town, which are the hubs of the film. So that's the issue that we are interested in. Of course, we have the proposal from one of the people who are also in this platform, Mr. Johnson. He's proposing for those who might have problems in terms of dealing with the compliance issues, he can assist in terms of those proposals, so that to make sure that you are able to ensure you meet all the requirements for the contract, and you are able to address whatever questions that are there, and then you can be successful in your application. The contact number of this company is, their website is www.avonsingattorneys.co.za. Email is info@avonsingattorneys. So those who are interested, they can engage with them, and then it will assist to make sure that they are able to guide you. So the other issues that came in is that question relating to applying for training program, whether you need to register to MICC. May I ask maybe Yolanda to come in so that she can clarify that part as a person who's coming from the core business. Yolanda, please assist.
In terms of the accreditation, so you don't necessarily have to have been accredited by SETA. However, you do, as a facilitator, have to either have experience, at least a minimum of 2 years, being being a trainer, or in the training that you would like to train in. You have to at least be in that industry or in that field for at least a minimum of 10 years. So those are the 3 requirements that you can have. So you don't necessarily have to be accredited by SETA. And the reason we have that is also, obviously, we are opening this to as many people as possible. As my colleagues have said, the main purpose of this is job creation. Somebody asked another question around, do we expect recruitment because our call does say there's a recruitment strategy. I think if you look at the types of fundings that are included in stream 1 rather, it's projects that are new, and then it's also the projects that need gaps. So if you, for instance, have received your other funding from elsewhere, that means you would have had a financial plan that includes the private investment or any other investment that would be recoupable. So we do want to then know where's the rest of your funding coming from and what are you applying for from us, and are we helping you then close that gap so you can then be able to go immediately into production? Because I think the emphasis, it really is on the projects that can be the implementation can start before the end of the year, because there is that time period. You don't have to finish your project in March, but I think in terms of having to sign a contract and having to start, it has to be within this year, and then we can then see each project one by one. There's another question from Ubuntu Africa, is asking if it's only production and no development. I think just looking at the amount of jobs that we want to create, Ubuntu, we are focusing on production when it comes to stream 1, because development, as we calculated, doesn't allow us to actually be able to employ a minimum of 10 people. 8,000 jobs is a lot. And we do need to get there fast, as fast as possible, and meet the government target. I'm gonna see another.
I think there's another question, Yolanda, about the student from FDA, Atenkos, saying, I am FDA student. I would like to. Okay, she's just proposing to volunteer. It's fine. It's not a question.
Okay. Yeah, I think the best way, if she wants to volunteer with us, she can send her details do I give away my email? She can send her details either to Mandi or Tandegile at the very least. Our email addresses are available on the internet, so she can email me directly, because we will be utilizing a few people as who are support from an administrative point of view. Or the other way is she could then contact production companies that would have received the funding and ask to volunteer there. So those are the options that she has. Sorry, I'm just looking at the questions. Zanokolo, do you want to pick up another question for me?
I think there was a question that is asked about tax compliance. We expect to fund people who are compliant in terms of the rules, because we are dealing with government money. But of course, in case maybe there are delays in one getting those compliance before the closing date, the allowance, you will be given 7 days to make sure that you address those issues. If people need any assistance, it will be important that maybe they send us also, maybe even after this engagement, any critical questions that they will need, more especially have to do with compliance, because it is not our intention as NFEF to make sure that we disqualify people for compliance issues. That's not our intention, because we want to make sure everyone qualifies. So if you have issues then on compliance, engage with us, then we will address those. Thanks.
And then there's another question from Julie, who's asking if we do fund equipment hire and travel and other elements of production. I think, Julie, the emphasis of this production, or of this fund or initiative rather, is job creation. So we will not then be able to cover. And also, I think the most important thing to understand is that it might not be 100% of everything you need. It is to help you get there. I mean, I think obviously the bigger the scale of your production, the more we're not able to fund it. However, if the scale is small, then we will be able to fund it. And I think it goes back to the question we had about caps and us having the the luxury of being able to sort of look at each project individually and seeing the needs, and most importantly, how many jobs can be created. There's
Sorry, Yolanda,
question.
there's a question of the, I'll give to you, sorry. There's a question about someone already having support or funding from NFEF, whether they can apply. But I think the approach that has been discussed at the department level is that we need to make sure that there is no double dipping. If the company applies, it must prove to us it meets the requirements in order to ensure that they create employment. But also, Nomazula, I'll just give to you so that maybe you can expand further on that.
I was actually going to further explain on the answer that Yolanda provided to Julie's question on whether funding would only be for a portion of the salary, that is the wage subsidy. In terms of stream 1 to stream 3, strictly it is for wage subsidy. So it's a portion of wage subsidy that you would require, that you would qualify for. In terms of stream 4, you then would need to demonstrate your overheads, which is the items that you list in your question. Those are items that would go into your overheads spreadsheet, as it were, and which then responds to one of the other questions that came up on whether an applicant can submit to two different streams or more than one stream. And the answer to that is yes. If your requirements then can be better met at any of the streams 1 to 3, but you also then have a requirement at business recovery, you can then have 2 applications that would be on either one of the employment creation or at business recovery.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yolanda, please assist us on other technical questions. There is also a question asked by Nkosazana about must you only have experienced people in key roles, like someone who was managed a show before and big budget, or can you have someone with minimal experience who's managed lower budget, or must you combine them? But you will just add on, Yolanda. I think my reading of what we were instructed by the department, I do not think our program of presidential employment stimulus is choosing certain types of employment that can be created. It's creating employment for the industry. Hence, we made an example when we presented earlier on about it can be someone maybe from an entry level up to someone who's having more than 10 years experience, as an example. So there is no limit in terms of who can apply, but our intention is to make sure we are assisted by the industry to create 8,000 jobs. Yolanda, if there's something maybe you need to clarify further, I will appreciate if you can also input further on that.
Okay, no, I think you've clarified it just fine. In terms of, there's another question from Pumelelo Mangoba about if we find MPOs. I think, Pumelelo, if your business, if you are in the film industry and the project that you are applying for is within the film industry, then yes, but what we will not be able to be funding are things that are, I think, so the funding that we are proposing still has to be in line with the NAVF mandate and with the things that we do fund. If you would have read more around the president's stimulus, you'll realize that there are other departments as well, like the NAC, who have been given the same task as us. So each department then is working within the framework of what they would have ordinarily funded. And then there's another question around, can we specify what the scarce skills are, or other scarce skills that NAVF has in mind? DJ EO, I would say if you would visit our website, there is a scarce skills report that we've done. Yes, it wasn't done last year, I think about 2-3 years ago, but I think it's still relevant because really the picture has not changed. But again, I don't think it should be something like the training that you provide should be needed, because something that might not be a scarce skill in Joburg might be a scarce skill in the Eastern Cape. So I think context is quite important. But we do have something that you can refer to in terms of what are the scarce skills and what is not. Someone is asking, I think it's Phoenix, if you're applying for a feature film, should you have had a distributor? Yeah, well, I think ultimately, if you are applying for a feature film, you should at least have a distribution plan of where you're hoping to take those films, because I think the fact that this is a stimulus does not take away the fact that you are still making a film, and it is still you are still expected to have that. But those are not the things that we would then disqualify you on. But it's just about knowing that you yourself understand your product and understand where it's going, and that you're not producing in a vacuum. Then there is a question from Miki asking, okay, I think this question from Nelwe has been answered around applying on the streams. You can help me.
So can
Yes.
I respond? There is a question by CD. And so does the production need to end in March? The instruction we were given by the department is that we must make sure we create jobs between this period until the end of March. Of course, we did pose a question to the department. What if maybe the projects, they will go beyond 30th of March? So the issue of committed funds was addressed. So it means you can still be paid even beyond March, as long as there is a proof that whatever we would have created will be within the period up until the end of March, because we understand some of the other things might not necessarily end at the same period, which is all of them ending in March. They might differ in terms of the finalization dates. So that one is going to be addressed by the issue of we will commit funds in terms of that. Then there is a question by Mangimbileni. Are we allowed to apply for more than one project? I think Nomazulu he has already answered that one. Edward Magaba, stream 1, what is the maximum amount to apply? I think in our engagement earlier on, we had indicated that our panel is going to guide and assist us, because the project that we are given as NFF by the department, it is the first of its kind, and we were given maximum amount, which is 100 million for new jobs and 40 million for the retention. And then we were given the numbers, which is 5,000 and also 3,000. So that means now we need to apply our minds in terms of how do we ensure that the slides is fairly equitable when we are sharing it. But as I indicated, we need to bear in mind that not everyone is the same experience, because I cannot imagine a situation where we give everyone 20,000 or 16,000 as an example, because experiences of people differ. So when the panel engage, then they will deal with that, looking at the expertise of the people and also the years of experience. But most importantly, as we indicated, is the number of the jobs that we are interested that people must create. And the minimum we're looking for is 10. So it means those people who've got experience in the space of this industry, they will help us in terms of determining that. So whatever you respond to will address the question of the numbers that we are expecting. Thanks. Yolanda, can take on.
Jason Conway says, can you please elaborate on stream 3? Is this stream for platform or just for marketing and distribution? So NAVF has a stream which is marketing and distribution, where it's already for existing films in terms of marketing, but also supporting the distribution. This would include for documentaries, things like the Impact campaign. And I think as well. This would include impact campaigns. But I think more than anything, looking at where we are right now, obviously there are people who are still running things like drive-in festivals. So it's mostly the focus of this stream is about audience development, and it's about targeting audiences. So if you come up with a non-traditional distribution plan that you have, then that is welcomed. Yeah, I think I have answered that. And then there is Kate Woodhunter who says stream 2, 12 months program in 2D animation internship only to be completed in 2022 April. Would this qualify? So I think, Kate, the problem here would be, I think the maximum that you can create jobs for is 3 months. And the reason why it's 3 months is also because then we're looking at what we can afford. So if you then have a training program that goes for 12 months, then it would also be more expensive as well. So I would encourage that you if you try and do 3 months, and in that way I think financially as well it would then be affordable, unless you already have other investors and what you're asking from us is the difference, and then that becomes a different case. But to fund it holistically, that wouldn't be possible.
Can I just add to what Yolanda has said? I think, and I hope that this can provide, the two responses that we're giving can provide lasting clarity on the issue of the duration of the support. So the subsidy itself is for a 3-month period, whether it is wage support or it is supporting operating expenses. And it can't, like Yolanda has said, it cannot extend for a period of more than, of beyond 3 months. So it's the nature of stimulus packages and how they work, and also how this was explained to us by the National Treasury, by the DSAC, that by their virtue, stimulus packages aim at resuscitating the economy by injecting some money into the economy, so that where there would not have been any seed funding to support economic activity, at least this begins to provide that stimulus for activity to take place. So what's also, so the summary of that is that the maximum amount of time that the stimulus is available is a 3-month period. And it is not holistic, it is a percentage of a wage support, and that will then be determined how it's allocated by the panels, and using the criteria that Zanokolo has provided. So what's important to also understand about the date of 31 March is that the two implementing entities of the DSAC, which is the NFVF and the NAC, have been given up to 31 March of 2021 to disperse the funds. Now, Zanokolo also mentioned that the disbursement could be in the form of commitments or provisions for work that has not necessarily commenced. Thank you.
Thank you, Nama. And then there's another question from Diane Makings, and she says SARS has indicated that they will no longer be giving tax clearances. However, they are giving pins. I think this has been going on for a while now. So we are taking pins from SARS because we understand that they're no longer issuing certificates. So all you need then to provide us with is the PIN, and then we will check then if you are tax compliant. And then there's a question from Katlaho Rama Hagela saying, can internship and mentorships be commissioned work? So this would be under stream 2. In terms of the mentorship and the internship, yes, you can. I think where we're not accepting commissioned work is obviously in stream 1. But in terms of the mentorship, if you have an already existing project where then you can employ interns, then that is allowed, as well as the mentorship, because it means you already have a structure, you already have a product which you can then incubate them in. So I suppose the question there, definite yes. Does the production have to end in March? No, not necessarily. Then I think others, CFO, you'll pick another question if I've missed one.
It's fine. There is a question by Anita Khan about we provide a partial funding on salaries for newly created jobs without indicating how much salary will cover. It is a difficult situation for production company to bring additional people without being sure that they can cover fully their salaries over a period of 3 months. It leaves us with a lot of uncertainty. Surely that is the uncertainty that stimulus package is trying to avoid. You need companies to be able to commit job creation rather than hold back. I think the issue here is that we indicated that, remember, the salaries that are paid to people, they are not always the same from different companies, even if it can be for the same job. The salaries of people differ. So hence we indicated that we will be guided by our panel of expertise, because people that have been appointed in our panels are people who are industry experts. But of course, as we indicated, we have 100 million and we've got a target of 5,000 jobs. And we need to make sure that the money is equitable shared for different stakeholders whom we expect to assist us to achieve these numbers in terms of appointing people. So we understand it might not entirely address the expectation of the applicants, of our stakeholders, in terms of saying, if I make an example, an intern is paid 3,500, you expect the full amount. We might not cover that. We might cover a portion of that amount. So it's going to be guided. Hence, I made an example earlier on of the experience and the expertise of the people that are going to be responding to this call. Thanks. Sorry, if production provides 60 new jobs, can a producer apply for funding for production design? Can you please address that? It's from Dennis Rod.
That is what would be applicable. That's so the question is, if a production company provides 60 new jobs, so obviously that's above the threshold. And probably I'm imagining that, Dennis, you don't want to apply for the wage subsidy. So what it means then, based on the content in the text of your question, is that you would want support for your overheads, which is what you've mentioned, production design, catering, etc. And those would qualify as your operating costs. So what it means then is that your application would be better suited at stream 4. Then there is another question about cancelled festivals. And cancelled festivals then could qualify, I suppose, even for stream 3, which is under distribution, because a festival is included as a qualifying criteria under stream 3, or you could put it at stream 4 because it essentially is a business that had cancelled work, but that would have had people that would be employed in it.
All right, thanks, Nozul. Yolanda, I need you to assist. There's a question from Okuhle Jasop. She is saying she's saying, isn't 3 months, which is requirement? How do we schedule our documents for 3 months? So can you please address that?
I think, like we said, in terms of the production, you need to employ people for a maximum of 3 months. Yes, we do understand with production, not everything will stretch for 3 months, but you do have you will be employing people in pre-production, in production, and in post. So as a company, you will be employing people throughout the value chain. So I think that is also important to note, because I think we have raised it with you know, with our stakeholder to say that there are things that will be quite different in our industry that will not be able to implement on, and they've understood that. But in terms of, like I'm saying, you are employing people at the different stages, so that would in a way end up being 3 months. I hope I have answered your question correctly, or to your satisfaction rather.
It's fine. Sorry, Yolanda, there's one for me for production from Rehat Desai. Can a production application choose whether to take as soft grant or can be a recoupable grant?
Okay. So this is a stimulus. So it's not, this grant is not recoupable. It is a grant, so you don't have to pay it back. When we spoke about recoupable, like I was saying, it's when we're finding a project that already exists, and then you do have private investors or other recoupable grants that we would then need to see the recoupable schedule for that. But in this instance, you don't have to pay back. This is the government's way of saying, as my colleague Nomazulu had said, Uguti, we want to rejuvenate the industry. We want to resuscitate, the industry that has been affected throughout this past few months. Is there another question, CFO?
Yeah. If the cap is 3 months for duration, we'll get the outcome by end of December. Nomazulu, please clarify that.
In our presentation, and I'm not sure, I hope, Rehat, you've been with us since the start, but just in case, and for anyone who might have joined us late, we anticipate to have the outcome ready by the 15th of January 2021. And then I went further to explain then that the support itself, the stimulus itself, is only for a period of 3 months. And the NFVF needs to have completed the project by the 31st of March 2021 in terms of disbursement. So a project can, and I think Yolanda also emphasized the same issue, that a project can have a lifespan that is beyond 31 March 2021. But what's important to note, and the principle is that the support can only be for a 3-month period.
Another question is asking if this would be a once-off payment. I think, as we had said, as much as this is not an NABF, I think fund, we do still need to ensure that people do deliver and that you actually do hire the people you said you would hire. So not all the funds would be paid 100%. You will be paid a portion of the fund, but it's definitely not going to be like broken down as per the NAVF funding. It might be 2 or 3 tranches, but it will not be like based on a lot of tranches as we have said it. I think CFO had already spoken about when the contract starts. So I hope that answers your question. And then someone says, please explain how to fill the job opportunity section in the stream application. So I think if you go through, this is from Theory, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. If you go through the application form, you will realize that there's like, we've put in an attachment as well for you to select and there's a drop down thing that you need to click to then select the jobs that you would want. But over and above that, you can then send us like an attachment of all the jobs that will be created. And I think do use our resources, I would say. We do have, like we've mentioned Manti and Tandekile, but there are other people at the office that are there to help you with your application to ensure that they answer your questions, especially when it comes to the system where you find that you're not sure of a certain document or you're not sure what you need to approach. But I think, again, we can only help you if you apply on time. So I would advise people that we try and apply as soon as we can, as opposed to waiting for like then like at 4 o'clock on the 30th, because then it becomes difficult to help everyone at that moment. So I think give yourself enough time, read the application and go back and see if you've got all the documents, and then go back and put in your application, and our team will help you.
All right, thanks, Yolanda. I would want Nomazulu to assist us. There is a question about the salaries for the crew or the cast is coming from evidence. So please address that.
Right. So the principle here is to understand that the beneficiaries or ultimate beneficiaries need to be the people who are covered in the mandate of the NFEF. On the form itself, you can see the list. It's not an exhaustive list, but it acts as a guide of the type of people or the type of roles that are eligible for support. So it's mainly then crew and not necessarily cast. So for cast, you probably then have to go to the NAC application. And I've already explained that it's a wage subsidy, basically meaning a salary and not necessarily operating costs. The operating costs ought to be entered at the application on stream 4. And then there was another question. Scroll down, please. Let me just see the question. Yes, there was another question on whether you'll be eligible for funding if you already have part NFVF funding. And earlier, Yolanda did explain that existing NFVF funding is not a disqualification, because this is not an NFVF fund. It is a fund of the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program. So it's a fund of the presidency, and that's allocated by National Treasury and managed by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, who have then delegated the responsibility of implementing it to the NFEF.
Okay, thanks, Amazon. I think there is another question about, I think, stream 1 application. Can you please assist Terry Kosato? Hope I pronounced the name right. Kasuto. Please explain how to.
Oh, Yolanda had already addressed the question from Terry. And what's important as well is to, and I think we should be upfront about this, that it's probably the first time in most of us generation that we're administering a stimulus fund. So we are going to be experiencing new things, and that we invite then potential applicants to make your recommendations on how you think we can improve some of the employment platforms. And we will then be interacting with you. You can send those recommendations to the 2 applications officers, Tandegile and Mandi, and we've provided their details.
Yeah. And then there's another question again from, I suppose we can answer it from Desai. Asking if the cash flow will start in January. The cash flow will start as soon as your contract is signed, and that's when and from there on, this obviously, as per our projection, is end of January. But the definite answer is as soon as your contract is signed, then you start receiving the funds. There's another question from Bianca Isaac. Will the stimulus grants be rebatable by the DTI? No, they will not be. So the DTI does not rebate grants, especially government grants. So the DTI will not be able to rebate this this portion if it's at all. Hope that answers your question. And then,
sorry, Yolanda, let me just inform our stakeholders that we unfortunately have 5 minutes left in terms of engagement. So we will not be able to answer everything now here on this presentation that we just made, but people are encouraged to engage with us on the platform that we have shared. But we have noted the questions, all the questions that we have here, they are recorded by the service providers who are assisting us. So we will make sure that we will address them. But of course, next week we are having another engagement. But I think maybe in terms of the time, since the closing date is 30th of this month, please immediately after this session, engage with us so that we can assist you, start the process. If we have a question again, in our next session, it can be a follow-up question. So I just wanted to make you aware that the time now is against us. So in the next few minutes, we will be closing the session. Thank you. Yolanda, you can continue.
I just wanted to clear something else, CFO. I think it was with regards to Stream 4. I mean, part of the web productions that have been active during lockdown that may have had unexpected, I suppose, expenses, like having to take care of the requirements that came with COVID. So I think when you look at things like that, it is covered under the recovery, the business recovery, just saying it for those projects that have not closed. Again, it's only independent projects.
Thanks. There is a question from Tutswama Araswa saying, with regard to the stream, with the submission of feature film, does the production have to provide both full script and the screenplay? Yolanda, I think you can assist us there as an industry expert.
Yes, if you are applying for production, you do have to submit a full script.
Okay.
For a documentary, it's an outline and a treatment, but yeah.
I think also maybe it's important that for our stakeholders and people who are part of this presentation, go to our frequently asked questions in the NFVF website. We have addressed a lot of questions because we have tested these questions with our partners who assist us on the technical issues. So if there's are things that we need more clarity on, go to our website, but of course engage with us with all the platforms that are on the screen now, so that we can clarify anything. So I would encourage people to immediately use those platforms. So I think we are about to close.
I think that is a document with a pin.
We do have a pin.
Yeah, the document must have a pin and not, it's a document from SARS with the pin and not the pin.
Oh, okay. All right. I think the clarity on the issue relating to the text, we will need a document that will come with a pin. Time now is against us. May I thank everyone who has participated in the program. Thanks to Nomazulu, thanks to you, Yolanda, and thanks to the people who are assisting us to make this thing possible. Thanks to our stakeholders. Please engage with us. This is not the last session. We are meeting again with you next week. We will communicate via our social media platforms, also our website. We will make sure that we continue with our engagement also with the radio and other mediums that we will be using to communicate this. And we encourage people to please apply. And if you've got questions, please talk to us so that you don't lose out. There is money that we need to use and we need to help you. Thank you so much.